Hello, attendees. Welcome back. All right, the next session we have for today is by our keynote speaker, Anita Lettink, who's the advisor, future of work speaker, and founder of HR Tech Radar. Now, Anita is going to be sharing with us on how would the global talent workforce look like in 2025. It's an interesting topic, and without further ado, let's welcome Anita, who's presenting live from the Netherlands. Anita, over to you.
Hi, my name is Anita Lettink, and thank you for that nice introduction, Maya. I have worked in the HR and payroll space for the past 20 years, and today I focus on thinking about the future of work, and I help HR professionals get ready for that future. I'm so honored to have the privilege to present to you today. You can see my Twitter handle on the screen, so please feel free to reach out or use the Q&A if you have a question. But first, let's meet your 2025 employee. Wow, what a year we've had. I cannot remember anyone like it, and we're by no means done. 2020 gave us all a wake-up call and was a reminder that even the most resilient countries and companies can become uprooted by sudden deep shocks. And there were many of these shocks. It really felt like we compressed 10 years in a few months, and no country or company was spared. And HR was no exception. Almost all of these shocks had a direct impact on the people function. Many of you were forced to stop doing what you were working on. Instead, you had to manage the fallout of the many different crises that popped up and help employees and leadership deal with them. Kudos to all of you for showing such grace under pressure. Now, you might be just catching your breath, and here I am reminding you that it is important to think about the 2025 employee. So you might wonder, why? Here's why. The pandemic made one thing clear. Work and location are not as tightly connected as we once thought. People can be productive outside of the office, and working from anywhere is becoming the norm, especially for young people. By 2025, the workplace will look profoundly different as flexible work arrangements give rise to the economy of individuals. People who want work that is tailored to them and their needs. They are not thinking about a long-term career. They look for work with purpose that helps them grow and fits their current lifestyle. They have also lived through two crises. First, the financial crisis of 2008, and now the global pandemic, and learned that when things go bad, a permanent job does not provide security. As one of these youngsters recently said to me, relying on one employer and one income is too risky. They are digitally savvy and well aware of the value of their skill sets. And also keep in mind that when the average tenure is 5 years, that means 20% of your workforce leaves your company every year. And we also know that tenure goes up as people get older. You switch jobs more easily when you are young. So the average tenure of 20-somethings is less than 3 years. And in 2020, people stayed where they were, but they still wished to go. A recent study from Microsoft claimed that almost 50% of employees is thinking about changing jobs this year. HR vendor Personio claims that while it is 38% for the total workforce, it could be up to 60% for IT professionals. Now, you need to do the math for your company using your own data, but take into account that there will be a catch-up and that you'll need to prepare for these workforce changes. And though the pandemic is not behind us, as businesses start to reopen, we are already getting announcements about labor shortages in certain locations. That means you need to be ready. What is your approach to attracting and retaining talent? If people can work from anywhere, that leads to a world of opportunity where HR leaders can source talent globally. But it also raises concerns. If more people want to be an independent, what does this mean for your workforce? And how do you lead these people? Let's take a look. Now, you might think that introducing robotics and automation to replace part of your workforce is the answer, but don't be mistaken. Even though we've made tremendous progress, it's more likely that robots will replace some of what people do, the predictable, repetitive activities, but they will not replace all of what people do. So fully betting on automation isn't a way out. And keep in mind that in the past, every major technological change actually created more new jobs compared to the ones that were lost. I'm actually quite optimistic about the future of work and the role of people in it. Why is that? Because I think that with advances in technology, there are many new jobs to be created, especially because, like I just said, technology has always created more jobs, not less. Here are a few of the examples of new jobs that might be coming our way. But jobs also change rapidly. Who can honestly say that all job descriptions in your company are up to date or even accurate? Gartner found that the number of skills per job increases with 10% per year. In addition, 30% of today's skills will be obsolete within 3 years. So by the time you have created and approved a job description and hired someone to fill the position, some of it is already outdated. In other words, in today's rapidly changing environment, jobs are not the best way to organize work for people in the digital age. We need a more flexible way of looking at work. We need to unbundle jobs. But let's first take a closer look at the people that are going to do the work in 2025. Who are they and what do they want? When we think about the 2025 workforce, you might have seen this statement. In 2025, 75% of your workforce is millennial. I'll be honest, I had heard that statement many times without thinking anything of it. Until one day, I realized that if you have 4 generations in the workplace and one generation takes up 75%, the remaining 3 only have 25%. And that is mathematically impossible. So I did some research to find out what the real numbers are. And the surprising truth is that by 2025, peak presence of millennials is already behind us. They will be the largest group, but they will be between 30 and 45 years old. And that is always the largest group in the workforce. And if you combine them with Gen Z, together they will be 2/3 of your workforce. That is a big chunk. This is the group you need and want to attract. What do these younger generations expect from you? Where people used to say, I need a job to finance my life, younger people have a different attitude towards work. They say, I want a job to finance my life, but I also want to have a life. And I want to do something with purpose, and I want the organization I work for to reflect that purpose, and I want to see it in action every day. 2020 showed us that people are enormously adaptable. We had the tools and technology to work remotely all along. We just didn't use them to their fullest extent. The pandemic forced us to. And now that we've had the experience to work from anywhere at any time, we've come to value the flexibility. And we're not giving that up so easily. According to a recent GitLab survey, 52% of remote workers said they would look for a new job if their employer required everyone to come back to the office full time. 1 in 3 would leave if remote was no longer an option. Flexibility is key. Now, if your life expectancy is close to be 100, you won't have one linear career and you won't retire at 65. You will have multiple jobs in different industries. You'll switch often when you are young, and you might take a break to study or to start a family or to care for a dependent. You'll have a portfolio of experiences, and you think in capabilities and skills. The ability to learn new things, to collaborate with others, can be easily ported to different companies at different times and locations. Work is being separated from jobs and companies. You'll accept an assignment to deliver to a certain goal. Sometimes you work for yourself and sometimes for a company. You might even work for multiple companies at the same time, study, volunteer, and have a side gig. In doing so, people are also de-risking their income. As I mentioned, they have first-hand experience that relying on one income stream is too risky. It has never been easier to set up a side gig at home. I always say anyone with a credit card can start an online business, and many do. And that behavior increased during the pandemic because people had more time as they had no commute. They purposely develop multiple income streams because it gives them independence and leverage. In the past, compensation was always ranked at the number one employee need when searching for a new employer. Today, remote work and compensation are the top two requirements, and people find them equally important. If you don't offer them, you will not be the employer of choice, and it limits your access to talent. But don't think in compensation in terms of a salary, because the way we pay people is changing as well. These new workers have been digital all their lives. They live an on-demand life. Whenever they want something, they pick up their phones and get it. So when they work, they want that money to come in right after they're done, not 4 weeks later. Many don't use the traditional banking system. Banks are considered inflexible and expensive. Meanwhile, the banking industry is being completely disrupted by fintech startups, and all of them are digital, which means they also think global from the start. And with workers moving around, not having to change your bank account every time you switch locations is key. And so is the ability to make cross-border payments without losing money due to exchange fees and bank fees. This is where digital wallets come in. The focus is on mobile payments supported by digital currencies, by official digital currencies. Pay on demand is an example of these services. It's already making a big splash across companies of all sizes and was first driven by platform companies like Fiverr and Uber and Lyft. But now it is considered a perk for permanent employees as well. Another example of the growing role of technology in payments are smart contracts. Contracts that stipulate the requirement for a payment. As soon as an objective is met, an automatic payment follows. It's an application of blockchain that is rapidly gaining traction in work contracts. And don't underestimate the power of benefits. Even though independent workers send you an invoice and you wouldn't maybe think about offering them benefits, it could be one way to retain them by offering them access to discounted health insurance or a pension plan that you offer your permanent employees as well. And finally, as we start to better understand mental health issues, we also discover that very often financial problems are a root cause. So offering financial wellness training, helping people to pay their bills could be of critical importance in attracting the workforce you want. So think beyond salaries and benefits, understand the changes in the financial industry, and be creative in using them to your benefit to attract the talent you need. There's more than work and pay. You'll also need leaders with a different style, people who understand how to create a cohesive community with a common purpose, outside of the power structure that is based on hierarchy. Your workforce will consist of permanent employees, independent specialists, gig workers, managed service, etc. Think of them as network of teams, constantly in motion and self-directing while taking initiatives. People join and leave these networks as needed, and they are constantly changing, even merging with other networks. Collaboration is key. Young people flourish in loose structures, not in hierarchy. So they might join a team for 2 months, do something else while the project continues, and then come back when their skills are required again if they enjoyed their previous experience. To make that successful, you'll need to develop leaders who are transparent and consultative, who can sustain flat hierarchies and promote fast joint decision making and are excellent in quick team building. So, to bring it all together, the future workforce will be diverse on all aspects in characteristics, pay, contract options, etc. They expect a personalized approach that fits their current life, that includes where and when they work. During the pandemic, we have learned that value chains have become too complex and are too dispersed. And already we see that companies are bringing some of that back to the region, closer to their operations and closer to their customers. Note that we're also seeing a reverse brain drain. People are moving back to their home countries and bringing their remote jobs and their salaries with them. And even though some companies are bringing all their people back to the office or are talking about it, over the next couple of years, we'll see a complete renewal of what work is and what a workplace means. As we start to discover the power of automation, we'll need to rethink what people and what machines are capable of. Which resource is most productive at what stage in the work process? And how do we measure that? And when we answer those questions, should we even think in jobs anymore? Jobs really are a construct from the industrial age. And as we are entering the digital age, we need to design a new model to organize work by unbundling jobs. You should be thinking through a more flexible approach where we source project-like pieces of work and not hire for jobs. The market is surely headed in that direction, which means you need to embrace more flexible, blended workforce models where you can expand and contract swiftly with flexible access to highly skilled, specialized workers as and when needed at all levels in all company functions. Fortunately, you can get some help with that because there is plenty of talent to be found when you change the way you look. Instead of posting jobs and expecting full-time employees to permanently join your organization, it's better to identify part-time talent outside the organization and meet them where they are. You have to find the intermediaries that act as a bridge to that talent. These talent marketplaces act as clearinghouse to match people seeking gigs or project work with companies that need their skills. And the overview here is just a snapshot to give you an idea. And it doesn't even begin to address the broader creator economy that is starting to emerge. These marketplaces lead to increased workforce flexibility, both inside and outside the company, and not for gig workers only. There are now marketplaces for all kinds of talent. Every skill that you can think of can be hired online. The number of independent workers increases every year. In a survey, Harvard found that 90% of the C-suite viewed marketplaces for premium talent as important to future competitive advantage. That means that business leaders are fully aware of the talent challenges. Now, you could engage with these platforms as an ad hoc response to an urgent problem, but you'll find greater success when you develop an integrated strategy, a cohesive approach to incorporate marketplaces into your hiring strategy. So, as we prepare for 2025, we have to answer questions like, what is work? Who or what does it? Where and when? Who is in our workforce? How will people be compensated for work? Who gets credit for it? And what is the role of machines? Every organization must create a model that best suits its culture, workforce, business model, and competitive strategy. And during the pandemic, companies and HR have shown tremendous resilience in quickly changing policies and procedures to do things differently. Key attitudes as to where work is done, such as remote work, have undergone a swift and irreversible change. With this comes a new realization of what work actually is, how it is organized, and how it will be accomplished and carried out as we head into the future. That means you will need to tackle 6 strategic transitions. Use the pandemic as accelerator. People want the flexibility to work when they want, wherever they want. Work has become integrated in our private life. So build on that as you continue to imagine your company's approach to 2025. Think beyond jobs. We're headed towards a world without jobs. Dividing work into tasks and activities helps you understand which skills and capabilities are needed to execute them and make it easier to benefit from global talent. Also, create a portfolio of skills. Identify the talent the company has and the capabilities it will need in future. Design a talent ecosystem. Create the perfect combination of in-house and external talent, including a selection of marketplaces. And of course, embrace technology. Historically, technology has always created more jobs than it has taken. Understand which activities can be automated in order to create value by blending technology and people. You also need to use technology to analyze the data of what works and what doesn't. Becoming a data-driven people organization is key. Focus on personalization. We're getting used to hyper-personalization from companies like Spotify and Netflix, and now we expect that from every company, including the one we work for. We want a unique experience that fits our lifestyle. So design a variety of contract options like part-time, independent, managed gig to maximize access to talent, and do the same for pay. Also here, use data to understand what works and what doesn't. And make it resilient because the external environment is highly volatile. I fully expect changes in labor regulations, taxation, and economic factors to influence work at the local, national, and global level. Be prepared to adapt your workforce strategies to these changes. And to bring it all together, what do you do next? Where do you start? We cannot be sure about the future or what will happen in 2025, but we can develop a plan that connects our short and long-term view. And to do this, I use a framework that combines vision, strategy, and tactics. A company's vision is long-term and cannot include every detail because there are still many unknowns. Your business leaders might have articulated a vision for 5 or 10 years in the future, but during that time, we'll see new tech trends, global events, social changes, and economic shifts. The future of work is unpredictable. I mean, who would have thought that a large portion of us would be working from home in 2020? That is why I recommend to translate that vision into 5 assumptions for work and the workforce. Assumptions are not set in stone, and you can just or course correct once or twice a year, but it will give you something tangible to work towards. Now, your strategy is a high-level plan to realize the vision with a 3-year horizon that includes more detailed tactics the closer it gets to today. The amount of time varies for every organization, but typically 12 to 24 months is a good place to start. Because we can identify short-term trends and events, the kind of planning that you can do is tactical in nature, and the corresponding actions could include things like identifying marketplaces, targeting a specific group of workers, or translating job profiles into skill sets and capabilities. A new HR-led approach is needed to prepare for the 2025 employee. So you can create a blended workforce where the people function knows how to source the right skills in the right location at the right time with the right pay. And although I can't say with certainty what your 2025 employee will look like, I hope I gave you some insights to kickstart your imagination. And I'd like to leave you with the final question. What will you do today to be ready for tomorrow? I hope my presentation gave you some ideas of what to do next. And thank you for your attention. Over to you, Maya.
Thank you so much, Anita. So we have quite a number of questions here, but let me take the first question by Sean. So Sean have asked, some employers may still require work to be done on site. And so, what can these employers do to attract the 2025 employees?
It's an interesting question because during the presentation, I have talked about personalizing work. And I think it's important to realize that not everyone wants to work remote all of the time. There are people who like to work in a more structured environment and to come to the office every day. I don't think that we will end up in a situation where it will be absolutely impossible to bring people back to the office or to hire people that want to be in one place at the time. Think carefully through what you can offer these people and how to make that on-site job attractive. And then also think really carefully about where you could potentially find these employees. And I think you will see that you will be able to source jobs that are on site only.
Thank you, Anita. And we have another question from Joy, whose question is, do you see employment laws changing to suit this new trend in employment or flexibility of work? I think this is something you probably addressed just now, but maybe, explain further.
Yes, I do think that employment laws are going to change simply because employment laws are very often tied to a location. So you work in a certain location and that is where you pay your taxes. When people move, that becomes a liability for the employer, for instance, because if they use, let's say, a tourist visa to go somewhere and do the work, officially they should get a work permit and they should become workers in that country, and their employer should pay them in that country to avoid all kinds of legal issues. That is probably not sustainable. So I think that, and you can already see that some countries like Greece and the Maldives are creating a special kind of permit for remote workers. So they don't have to give up their residency, they don't have to pay taxes in that country, but they will spend money in that country on housing and on food and other amenities. So that is the attraction for these governments to change legislation. And as we get out of the pandemic and this is becoming more normal, I fully expect that governments are going to jump on this trend and start thinking how to benefit from it.
Thanks, Anita. Now, one final question before I wrap up. is from Prem Sheila. Her question is, in order to manage the 2025 employees, as what you have mentioned earlier, what tools or resources or training could you recommend that HR leaders need to be effective?
That's a really difficult question because there are so many tools and technologies coming onto the market. Lots of people creating solutions for problems that they have encountered while working remotely or working in a digital setting. I would say make sure that when you choose new tools and technologies, you involve employees to find out what works best for them. You could do beauty parades, for instance. You could do short pilots with different teams and then bring them together to exchange their experiences. But it's really important that it's not a top-down decision where someone in the C-suite decides what is going to be rolled out. For the reason that I alluded to earlier, these people are so digitally savvy. If you give them something in tools and technologies that doesn't work, they will go online and find something else that works for them. And all of it is available, almost all of it is available for free. So it's really easy. But the problem, of course, is that it goes outside the boundaries of your company, and therefore it poses a security and a privacy risk. So it's better to involve them in choosing something that works for all of you than to choose something that works for you, where the rest goes off and does their own thing.
Thank you so much, Anita, and thank you so much for your time, for making the time, for that extremely thought-provoking presentation. I hope you have a good rest of the day. And dear attendees, I would like now to share with you that we do have a full packed event tomorrow as well. So please do join us. We are starting off our day 2 with keynote speaker Dr. Terry Horton, who's the workforce futurist, and also many other incredible speakers and topics not to be missed. So I hope you join us. And before we end as well, I wanted to share with you that Asia's largest HR tech event of the year returns online this September 2021. So please scan the QR code that you can see on the slide over here. Register your interest and we can also send you further information. I hope to see you tomorrow. We still have other happenings as well today. So feel free to go to the agenda and participate in all of the demos that we have later this afternoon. Other than that, we also welcome you to come back